2 raging book nerds, 14 years of friendship, and 1 burning question.
If Katniss Everdeen posted on Reddit, would she be the arsehole?
Welcome to Once Upon a Red Flag. This season, we're stepping into Panem, where every tribute, tyrant, and mentor gets their day in the Am I the Asshole courtroom.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Rachel.
And join us while we read between the red flags and break down the Hunger Games, one questionable decision at a time. So welcome back to episode 6 of Once Upon a Red Flag. We are so happy to have you here. If you made it on to 6 episodes of us rambling, it's a big achievement. It's a very big achievement.
It's a massive achievement. I would like to take a note to say if the lighting changes, like we haven't, just give you a bit of context that we do laundry. This is our 3rd episode that we are filming in a row. So if you're wondering why we are looking like we are in the exact same clothes and someone locks us in a room and we aren't allowed to change, it's the same day. And the light is fading because it's November, in the middle of November in the north of England. So bear with us if we get progressively darker throughout this episode. Hopefully not. Hopefully we will look semi-decent, but we'll see.
So the icebreaker for today is, so we're about to dive into the careers, and with these guys, sadly, what you see is what you get. But, and be honest, Rachel, do you judge a book by its cover?
Yeah.
Same as fuck.
Yeah. The answer's supposed to be no. I'm well aware of this. But what is the cover of a book apart from marketing? Like, of course you pick a book off the shelf because you go, oh, that's pretty. Like, we have a whole business designed around making books eye-catching.
Yeah.
But I will admit, I also judge a book by its sprayed edge. Like, I do.
I love a good pretty sprayed edge. Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get that.
I know there's some criticism around, like, sprayed edges getting out of control. I think they're only out of control when it's just a block colour. Like, I'm not into when they're just a block colour, like someone's made a sprayed edge just orange. Just because it can have a sprayed edge. Like, that's not, maybe some people, it's not for me personally. I like a pattern sprayed edge.
See, I prefer a pattern sprayed edge, but I will still take a block sprayed edge. I
mean, I'll take it. Like, if that's the only copy I'm going to find, I'll take it. If I can find a pattern sprayed edge, then I'm happy. Then you've got the best happy girly in the world. But you've got to judge a book by its cover. Have to.
Yeah. I also do find a lot of, I kind of gravitate towards pink books, kind of pink, orange books. And I do find a lot of the time that is because those are the queer romance books. A lot of those are
is that
brightly
your
coloured.
colour?
Yeah. I like brightly coloured. Maybe not brightly coloured pink, but usually just brightly coloured. So I do kind of seem to gravitate towards them. Not always, but typically those are the queer romance books. So it's like kind of easier to find them in the shops.
What kind of thing do you not want to see on a cover though? Because I have a thing about romances where there's like actual like shirtless men on the front. I'm not into that. I don't want people to be like looking at me around a pool going, I know what she's reading. Like, let me enjoy my snot in peace.
I don't want people to know what I'm reading. And I do get what you mean. As soon as I see a book with someone shirtless on it, I'm like, not for me. Yeah,
I'll go out
not
on my
the
way
book
to
for
find
me.
a different cover.
Yeah.
If I can. Or I'll buy like the ebook and then just hope no one looks at my Kobo cover.
That's so funny.
When I'm reading, so like, I'm just going to like put a different cover on for now.
See, I don't have like a digital reader or anything like that. So I do obviously do audiobooks. But again,
you can hide.
But even then, if it's got a cover like that, I feel like, I feel like I shouldn't be reading this. I don't know why.
It feels like you're advertising that you're reading explicit material. I love a good spicy scene, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to have a whole book of spicy scenes. But then the books themselves look like it's like 60% bow chicka bow wow.
Bow chicka bow? I'm sorry, I didn't realise we were 12.
I'm sorry, you love my unfiltered thoughts. What are you talking about?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just crying over here. Okay.
It's been a long day.
It has.
Shall we get into the post?
Yeah, about to say getting it into the post. Ooh, I'm reading this one, so everybody strap in. I feel like it's gonna be a ride. Okay. Am I the asshole for being a violent Nepo baby? Interesting.
I'm sorry. It's Cato and the careers. I could not bring myself to word it any differently. They don't deserve the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
But I am also going to point out that I made Cato's Reddit username #1 killer with an A.
Oh my god.
I have had far too much fun about it.
Is this MSN?
Well, this was like, what's the actual publication date of Hunger Games? Because I feel like it's very on brand for the times.
It's true, actually. That is actually very on brand for the times.
I feel like it's very on brand for the times that this is published. So
okay,
I stand by it.
Getting into the post. I, 18 male, was raised my whole life to fight. In my district, being reaped with the Hunger Games isn't a tragedy, it's an honour. We train from childhood, volunteer, and dream of glory. We're told we're the best of the best and that we deserve to win. Everyone was proud of me when I finally got the chance to enter the games. I'm natural at this stuff. I'm confident, strong, and these games were mine to win. Then these games came about something other than me, and I didn't like that. When we got into the arena, I began hunting the other tributes, with my sights really set on the girl who got a higher score than me in our skills assessment. But I did what I was trained to do. I teamed up with the other tributes like me, and we systematically hunted down our competition. The game is about killing, and that's what I'm trained to do. So that's what I did. I succeeded in killing enough people that I made it to the final 3. I know what the capital wants: strength, spectacle, and control. So that's what I gave them. But then I didn't win, and my death was long, drawn out, and painful, like I made other people suffer. I'm ashamed to say I was begging for mercy by the end. Am I the arsehole for believing in a system that raised me, doing what I was taught to do, even if I became a monster? Okay.
Ghost Cato has got some deep reflection skills. He'd never show as much weakness as to write this post. But no. I found it cathartic, so...
He's talking to us from beyond the grave. I
had a lot of fun.
I've got so much to talk about this, about the careers, about how they're trained up, and I think we should probably just jump right in. Okay, so I think we should start with what a career actually is and what that means within the context of Panem. So, quick reminder, careers come from District 1, 2, and 4. They're trained to go into the Hunger Games and win it. They have a long history of success, which most victors are actually from these districts. We know that if you win the games, your whole district reaps the benefits of extra food and supplies, so winning more often automatically means your entire district benefits, which also means the tributes from the district benefit. They live in better conditions than other districts do, have more food to eat, and overall have a better quality of life. It's an honour to fight for your district, and there is glory in the slaughter of your other tributes. You don't just win celebrity in the capital, you also win celebrity in your district, where being a victor means more than in, say, District 12. It's an honour to go into the games, and it's definitely an honour to win, or at least they view it as an honour to win. But careers being both children, but also trained killers, is kind of a weird paradox that Suzanne Collins gives us. Careers are called the capital lapdogs and capital loyalists. So I think we first need to explore why these children actually want to be careers and fight in the games, and like what it gives them, like what are the benefits for them actually being careers and for those being career districts. So you have the glory of winning the games and bringing pride to their district and families. Yes, more if you live, but I guess also if you don't as well. And they continue to bring privilege to their families and their district, to then just repeat the cycle with more careers, so more food security, mentorship, status, that kind of thing. They are taught that killing equals glory and glory equals worth. So there's a lot of stuff around self-worth, especially when you're a child. Like, that's hard enough as it is. Their violence is shaped by the capital's demand for spectacle. There wouldn't even be careers if the capital didn't want the games to be entertaining and big. Like, training is technically illegal, as it makes it unfair for other tributes. But the capital allows it because it makes these shiny, exciting tributes and victors, and also traps certain districts into being loyal to the capital. On top of this, I also want to mention, but I guess there's probably not a whole lot of other career opportunities either in these districts. Like if you've been trained to be a career and literally just been taught to fight, like your entire, say you start from like 6 or something up until 18, wouldn't you be like, well, at this point I might as well. Like what else am I qualified to do?
Like, I mean, yeah, so like when you brought this point up originally, I sort of had a bit of a think about what this like actually means when you've trained most of the kids to be killers. So let's just for more context about like what these careers could actually be. So District 1 is usually luxury goods. That's like your diamonds and things like that, and like jewelry and stuff that is really unnecessary to survive, but is a privilege to have. Or if you're in the capital, it's kind of just common. District 2 is masonry, peacekeeping and military support, and District 4 is fishing. Predominant, that's their industry. So I can see how like spearing fish and like joining the peacekeepers, having like military support, that might satisfy this twisted need for violence that's bred into the careers. But I also can't quite figure out why, like what luxury goods kind of, how would that play into these like District 1 trained kids who don't get reaped? Now, I've never really like fully considered the crime stats of a district.
No.
Because the capital's opinion of what constitutes a crime is genuinely screwed up.
Yeah.
But this process of training these kids into becoming vicious, unrelenting killers definitely screws with their moral compass, which begged the question, do serial killers exist in this world? And is that what careers become? Because you're breeding these kids into having this like violent tendency, right? And what about all the kids who don't have the honor of going into the games, but believe it's their right to be able to kill indiscriminately? Like, is everyone in their district safe because they've all been trained the same way? Or is this when we start having like our own mini gladiator style Hunger Games things going on within District 1?
Yeah,
Because
I guess I hadn't even thought about that in terms of serial killers, and in terms of, you know, there's tons of kids that will train to be careers and they'll get to 18 and they'll try and volunteer, but you've got all these kids trying to volunteer. There's still only one male and one female tribute position every year when these kids turn 18.
every year.
So what are all these other kids gonna do when they don't get a go? It's like their dreams being squashed. They haven't got into, like, you know, if we didn't get into our dream university or our dream job kind of thing. Like,
yeah,
they've
like
now got this anger.
You're literally being trained for one job and then you don't even get given the interview. That's kind of the idea, right? And I kind of also like had the idea of what are these training camps like? Like, do we know? Because I'm picturing some like Fourth Wing style shit, right?
So
like
am I.
if you die because you're weak, tough shit. Like every man for themselves, you're pitted against each other. If you don't make it out of the academy, then that's on you for not being strong. But then obviously that can't be the case, I guess, because who would handle the luxury goods industry? It's not one guy comes out on top and kills everyone to get to. They still have reapings, they still have graduating classes, and then these guys just are supposed to go into making necklaces.
I guess. Does every single child get trained as a career, or is it like a select amount of children get trained? Or is it like, is it a situation like you said with Fourth Wing and Baskayev where they go and then every couple of years certain kids get kicked out? And then
what's the selection process to getting put into this training academy? Do you have to have had a particularly brutal parent? Do you have to like fail some psychological exam? Like, what is
or pass? They might consider it pass psychological,
depending on
how you want to view it. Yeah.
How we look at this. Like, what? Like, how do we pick who these kids are? How do we pick? Are they screwed up before the training? Do they get screwed up during the training? Are they forced into this? To force them into this would imply more capital input than the capital might like to admit to. But it just was a sticking point of like, how does this work? Where do we get from here?
We obviously, one of my favourite careers, Finnick, he is a career, he is from District 4. He's not necessarily part of this episode, but I think it's good to mention that does he volunteer at 12 or does he volunteer at 13? I think he volunteers at 13, and he's like one of the youngest victors, like to win the game. So if you're kind of working backwards, if he volunteers when he's 13 and he's very, very good at that stage, how long has he been training for to get good at that stage? Like literally must have been from 5, 6.
Yeah, I was going to say
maybe
5 then when you asked that question. So from a young age, you're morally corrupting these kids. I'm thinking of it as being a training camp and not as a like homeschooling kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there are things that this training does not give them. But before we get on to that, let's talk about what advantages they do have and what the training does give them. So they're like more physically able to overpower other tributes, but then they're bigger, they're stronger, they're better fed because of this long history of winning, right? But then because of that, they're more physically able to win at the Cornucopia. So they control all those supplies, all those weapons, the extra clothing, the tents, like the night vision glasses, for crying out loud. The careers have 2 sets.
Yeah.
This becomes their strategy, but it's pretty damn predictable because this is the strategy of every single person. And they always like to be against an underdog. There's never a fair fight with them. Like I mentioned with the night vision glasses, Cato and Clove are hunting at night. They have the night vision glasses. They are the only ones who can actually see in the dark. Now, every other tribute probably asleep because they actually can't do anything in the dark. They're aware they're in the forest. Other people are out for them. They can't light a fire. They can't cook anything. They can't travel very far because the darkness is a disadvantage to them. You're just making the playing field even more unfair by using that advantage. But that's what they've been taught to do, is to take as much of an advantage over everybody else as they can get.
I do worry sometimes, though, them having that advantage and being told they've got that advantage and that they're kind of better does make them cocky. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But we obviously do know that the careers have their typical career strategy. And it's funny how it doesn't end up being a career that guards the pile of supplies when, Katniss and Rue are going about to blow them up. The boy from Free that they have, who they effectively kind of hire in a sense, is expendable. He isn't big or burly or capable of really fighting off any thieves. But if he accidentally triggers the explosive, it is no great hardship. Doesn't really matter that much. His expertise has been used to set the traps, but he isn't actually needed from that point onwards. And I guess the careers are building these alliances that are expendable and hope when they view you as expendable that you're bigger and burlier and can overpower them, which we found typically isn't the case. And forming alliances with Peter, for instance, to find Katniss, to then try and kill Peter when he has kind of fulfilled his purpose, shows how they do see these people as expendable, like with the boy from Free. They booby trap, or the boy from Free booby traps their stockpile, and then they probably send him in when they want things from the pile, because if he blows up, it's fine. It's not them. And when it does all go tits up, Cato obviously kills him in a fit of rage, but it's fine because he's from 3. He doesn't have a use to them anymore. And I think that is interesting how the careers valued human life.
Well, they don't.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
But I think anyone to them that isn't themselves is an expendable resource. Like even their fellow tribute. We mentioned in a previous episode with Katniss and Peter around how really you can't kill the person who comes in from your district into the arena with you.
Yeah.
And that's not really an issue with careers, I don't think. I think they are trained. It's like, you are the only person who matters. Your winning is what matters. Like, if anyone else is going to win, you'd rather it be the person from your district. If it's not you, but you'd rather it be you.
Yeah.
So great. Like if you want to overpower your district partner at the very end so you can win, fab, do it. That's not a problem. So if you have no qualms sacrificing the person directly from your district, well, who do you have qualms
Yeah.
sacrificing?
Because
Really?
you also have to acknowledge the fact that usually it's typically the careers that are left. Like they pick off all
Yeah.
of the other like smaller, potentially weaker, less trained other district tributes, and it's them that's left. So they do ultimately, even though they form that typical alliance as they're expected to do at the start, they do have to turn on each other at the end. Obviously not in these games, but in past games.
There's no other way around it. Ultimately, there can only be one winner. Traditionally, usually. Like every other career, even though they form that alliance, every other one has to die for there to be a winner. But disadvantages, like we say, it's something the capital turns a blind eye to. They don't care if the careers kill each other. They just want, ideally, a career to win, because if they didn't want a career to win, then wouldn't they shut down the training camps? There's obviously privileges to having loyalists in your back pocket. And one of these privileges I've found is potentially another one of my fan theories, a potential more believable one than I usually come up with, granted. But Cato acquires, so if we go to the feast where Peter needs his medicine, right? Cato acquires somehow some sort of skin-tight, full body armor that moves like a second skin against Katniss's arrows. This is a brand new thing Katniss has not seen on him up to this point. Now, Katniss's arrows is the one advantage that she has over Cato. Cato is bigger, he's burlier, he has training and size and brute strength as his advantages. She can kill from a distance with her arrows. That is her advantage. That levels the playing field. If she can get up in a tree and shoot him from above, fabulous. She's cracked it. But then he turns up with this full body armor, and he gets an even bigger unfair advantage because now Katniss can't shoot him anywhere that's covered. His only available areas of his feet, his hands, and his head.
Yeah,
and Katniss speculates this comes from the feast. She thinks this is where he got it from because it's the first time this has ever been revealed to her. Now, Peter needed that medicine to stay alive. That was a desperate, desperate need. And the feast itself is phrased as something that they needed. Not wanted.
Yeah, not wanted,
needed. Now, did Cato need a bigger advantage? Did he?
Not really, no. Unless they thought Katniss might actually be able to shoot him.
Yeah, that's my only conclusion I can draw from that, is that the game makers are favouring Cato to win. The game makers who are meant to be a bit more impartial about who the capital is meant to be impartial about who their winner is. Otherwise, why would they give Cato freaking body armour?
Yeah.
So that the arrows just bounce off him.
That's so unfair. That's so unfair.
But don't forget, at this point, they still have the rule in that says that two people can win. So when they thought that up in the first place, the game makers probably never even realised Katniss and Peter would get anywhere. Because when they make this announcement, Peter is dying. So they get ratings, probably from them being together. They're getting money in. Don't forget, we've already established that the Hunger Games has become about profit, become about money.
Yeah.
As we discussed in, what was that, episode
2? Yeah,
episode 2. Our Effie episode. So they're only keeping Peter alive just to give them more, and they still think that there's no way Katniss and Peter are going to get this far. But at this point in time, that they realise he has body armour, Katniss and Peter and Cato are the final 3. This body armour is the antidote to the medicine that keeps Peter alive. Because to give Cato the unfair advantage then also means that Peter and Katniss are still more likely to be the losers, not be the victors, to be the people who don't come out. And the game makers and the capital are all massively invested in careers winning. And I think that's another unfair advantage. But moving on to the disadvantages of being a career, that is, you're unfallible. arrogance, cockiness,
Yeah.
believe that
Yeah.
the world is yours.
Yeah.
Because even with the full body armor advantage, Cato, he couldn't just snap Peter's neck, could he? He couldn't
No.
just then snap his neck, kill him, and take on Katniss. Now, genuinely, I believe that if he had done that, if he had killed Peter, A, there wouldn't have been a book 2, but B,
Yeah, that couldn't happen. Suzanne Collins literally could not let that happen. But yes, carry on.
he knows at this point only an arrow in the head could kill him, and he
Uh-huh.
taunts her, and that's his downfall. Because if he had snapped Peter's neck, what would Katniss have actually done at that point? Because I genuinely don't believe that she could have had the strength to kill Cato through the head. She would have fumbled that arrow, and Cato would have won. His arrogance is what kills him here, because he stands there taunting her with his arm wrapped around Peter's neck, choking him, sure, but not killing him. And it's buying that time for Peter and Katniss to think that means that Cato died and that he fell off. Now, I think then that obviously that one of the things they teach the careers in these districts is less about survival skills and more about just putting on a good show.
Yeah.
More
No,
about
I
just
100% agree.
how cruel can you be to another tribute? It is violence porn, effectively. There are people in the capital who are getting off, hopefully not literally, but getting off on watching.
God. Yeah, carry on.
When things come out, I feel like, should I have said that? Probably not. People are getting off on watching slow and torturous deaths, but then the Mutts torture him and prolong his death, like Clove wants to do to Katniss, and we'll get into exactly what Clove does next, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did just want to talk about how horrible that death is. I mean, I'm not a fan of Cato, but like just to be training for that your entire life, essentially, to then volunteer to be a tribute to win. He probably got that full body armor and he thought, oh yeah, like I'm grand, like I'll be fine, I'll definitely win now. If he wasn't so full of arrogance before that he thought he would. And then to just hours and hours getting pulled apart by mutts. What a horrible way to go. I don't think he didn't deserve that. I don't think anybody deserves that.
Yeah, they seem to be keeping him alive. And something that's dawning on me now as we speak about Cato's death being as drawn out as it is that these mutts are game maker made.
Yeah.
These mutts are controlled effectively by the Hunger Games game makers and the Capitol themselves. Is this drawn out death Cato's punishment for not being able to win, for not being able to take on Peter and Katniss? Because him dying here puts the game makers in a very uncomfortable position. They have to risk the wrath of the general public, who are now invested in Peter and Katniss as a couple, because the game makers announced that they could both win. They have then put themselves in this position. And if we go with the theory that the reason that Cato has the body armor is to effectively kill Katniss and Peter after the game makers have panned it up, that's their out, right? Otherwise, they have to revoke the 2 people can win rule.
I think, do you think it's almost them drawing out his death, essentially them trying to buy themselves, not only punishment, but also them trying to buy themselves time to figure out what
to do next. Oh, probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Because they're like, oh, we've really messed up here. And I actually don't know what the contingency plan is now. And
we also know that Head Gamer gets killed because of this decision.
Yeah.
So he's probably trying to figure out a way to save his own neck. And so these mutts are literally like drawing out this death under game maker control because they need time to scramble. And then Katniss screws it for them by putting Cato out of his misery. She hangs over and uses the last arrow to shoot him to end it.
Okay, so kind of moving on from that a little bit, we can see by looking at the careers in that original Hunger Games about just how, they've been educated and how they view their other tributes, because we see Clove from District 2.
Mm-hmm.
She tortures Katniss, and I think this especially comes across in the film as well. I know when I'm watching it in the film, I'm like, this feels super uncomfortable, and kind of shows that sadism. Like Clove tries to kill Katniss so slowly for a good show, studies how to like cut her up like she's a bit of wood, and she really draws it out. Like you can see she wants to watch her suffer. And this is what a 16 to 18-year-old wanting to carve Katniss up and watch her suffer. It's not necessarily to kill. Obviously, kill is the end goal, but Clove gets that kick out of torturing someone before death. Like,
and it's with her, it's not about being the last one standing.
Yeah.
At all. Like, and therefore, like, people have to kill to win. She loves it. She taunts Katniss about Peter, about how the Koreas killed Rue. She selects which knife from her, like, impressive array is what, like, Katniss calls it. And then she calls it an almost dainty-looking number with a cool, curved blade. She's been collecting knives for different jobs, different carving opportunities. And her and Cato have, like, discussed which one of them gets to kill Katniss, and she's won. Cato wants to kill her, sure, but Chloe has basically promised him like that she'll put on a good show for the audience and like actually, bless you, torture.
Thanks.
Actually torture Katniss more than Cato would have, which kind of leads me to the question though. What do we think Clove's kill count is for?
In just the games, or do you think she's
in just the
been
games
killing before that? Okay.
Well, probably both, but in just the games, because how many other tributes do we think she just wants to torture Katniss, or do we think she wants to torture anyone? And in that case, how many other tributes has she tortured?
I think she would happily torture anybody, and I just think in that scene we obviously get it from Katniss's perspective, and she even relishes in how they killed Rue. And I think when she is gearing up to torture and kill Katniss, it's not even just the physical torture she gets excited about, it's like the mental torture as well.
The mental.
Of like mentally torturing Katniss with all the people that she couldn't save because they were too good at killing and this kind of thing, which is so sick and twisted.
So twisted.
I feel like her kill count must be quite high. It has to be, right?
I think there are like unidentified screams throughout the arena that are probably 100% Clove. But I also go back to, do we really think these kids have gone into this arena and done this for the first time?
Some of these
kill count outside of the arena.
Some of these I do wonder, like, in the career training camps and that kind of thing, or schools, whatever you want to call them, there has to be accidental deaths that happen, right? When they're practicing, there are probably other kids that die and they get passed off as, oh, that was just an accident, oh, this and that happened, like in Fourth Wing, where some kids die, especially if you've got people so messed up like Clove who really want to go into the games. Who says they wouldn't knock off their competition of their fellow careers just to be able to get a spot?
Who says they wouldn't practice, like really hone their ability to put on a show for the Capitol?
And this whole thing, obviously, I mentioned with Cato as well, about how he gets quite cocky because they've obviously been told they're the most important, they're the best, they're going to win. It is ultimately Clove bragging about all the people she has killed to Katniss, and then that, which seals her death certificate essentially, because that's what gets her head smashed in by Thresh. It's her own sadism and twistiness that gets her killed as she gets too cocky. But the big question is, was that sadism programmed into her by her district, or was that always there?
Yeah, I wonder, did they exploit? And that's the question, like, do you get selected because there is something in you that can be exploited? Or do you get morphed into this? Because it is that, I won't necessarily say sadism. Well, the sadism makes her want to put on such a good show. And it is, going back to like you say, Cato putting on the show at the end to taunt. It's that show that is ultimately their downfall in this.
Yeah. And
it's I feel like if it wasn't very, very deeply rooted sadism, the desire to put on the show, you'd usually have that overridden by survival instinct. I wonder, we do know they have brainwashing capabilities though.
yeah, we've seen that. Yeah.
We've seen that.
But also,
how deep does it go?
We do see a side of Clove though when Thresh obviously picks her up and is screaming at her, being like, "Did you kill Rue? Did you kill Rue, that little girl?" All that kind of thing. Clove does seem to switch. She does kind of almost start begging for her life, kind of thing, and start shouting for Cato, and who was obviously not going to come and help her. Like, she does then seem scared. So there must be a part of Clove, unless that was all an act, but I don't think it was.
I don't think it was. I think she's like faced with the consequences of her own actions, and then God forbid she ever do that. She doesn't admit though. She doesn't.
No.
She doesn't. I think if she was truly deeply sadist at heart, she'd want to brag to Thresh, because Thresh seems to have some sort of feelings over Rue's death.
Yeah.
Because she was so young, because she was 12 and such a small little thing. She could jump through the trees. She's weighs so little. I think if she was truly sadist, she might brag. If she was truly that sick and twisted in what she's accomplished, she might brag about it.
So getting on to another one of the careers, we obviously have Glimmer's death. I feel like that is especially horrifying and dehumanizing, like how Glimmer's death was so brutal. In the book, like Katniss describes her skin goes putrid and melty, and then when she tries to move Glimmer to get at the bow and arrow, the skin basically falls off the bones. So she's finding it hard to like move her to get the sheath of arrows off her back. Every time I read that, I'm like, oh, like it's so disgusting. And obviously, she was known as beautiful and a star for the games, being from District 1. She's dressed up so pretty by the stylist, but she has this such ugly death that takes all of her beauty away. And yes, like her head is kind of a lot of air. Like she isn't really the smartest one of the tributes. That's not really why she's there. She tries to use the bow and arrows because she probably saw how good it made Katniss look and made Katniss look like for a star for the viewers, but she's just awful at it. And something else sad to think about though is for her being so pretty, was she honestly just better off dying in the games than becoming a victor and being put into President Snow's cycle of, I hate to use the word, but pedophilia.
Yeah. So like you mentioned earlier, Finnick was 13 when he won, and we all know about this lovely little circle of paedophilia from Finnick. And it's a running thing about how all these kids are stripped of body hair and dressed up to look older than they are. It kind of just feeds into that idea of body as commodity. And really, I do think in a lot of ways you are better off dying in the arena than dealing with the life that comes with being a victor. I think if you are a career, you're particularly the more well-equipped to deal with the life, though, that you would be granted by the Capitol if you actually win. But then again, it's still an if, because there's 6 careers that go into this and only one of them can come out.
Yeah.
So chances are you're still up against it to survive. There's one career makes it to the final 3 in this entire games.
So, talking about Cato, obviously Cato makes it to the end. He has so much rage inside of him, like even from the very start, but he dies brutally for hours, as you mentioned. But his speech at the end is what really gets me. It's so dramatic, and he acknowledges the fact he's already dead and has been for a very long time. I think he says something along those words. And it feels like then and there he realizes that his district and the games has made him dead inside, and training for the games has made him dead inside. They've stripped him from all of his humanity, made him a killer. And it makes me sad because it makes me wonder what kind of person Cato could have been if this had not happened to him.
I mean, to have that level of, I guess, awareness towards the end means that he's probably quite emotionally intelligent. He's probably got a good brain, a good head on his shoulders. But that rage, and I guess the question is, who's the rage directed at?
Yeah.
Is it rage that has been born into him by the capital because of what the capital does, that the capital has then redirected elsewhere? Or is it more like he was a big ball of rage that the capital has programmed into him rage against other people, and he's realized that rage is no longer productive? And Katniss reflects that he might not even be sane.
Yeah.
She witnesses after she's blown up the food supply and all the other things that they have looted from the Cornucopia and built the big bomb network around, basically. She sees his tantrum and he literally starts pulling out his hair and beating the ground, and she sort of goes, oh, people genuinely have that reaction, and it's just this anger explodes from him. And then he realizes it's the boy from 3 did his job a little bit too well, and then just snaps his neck. So when Cato's rage takes over, he does kill instantly.
Yeah.
But it's not the rage that I think he's often fueled by when he's killing. It's the sadism. It's that need to put on the good show. It's a lot more calculated. And in those moments, he's a lot more aware of his actions. Because if he was filled with rage, he would snap the neck.
Yeah.
He does hold back instead. But he's had it out for Katniss from the very beginning. She outscored him in training, and that put a target on her back. And she says a boy like Peter would shrug that off. A good boy. Sane boy, if you will.
Peter. Yeah.
But it drove Cato to distraction, this anger boiling inside him, that a girl from 12, if we're saying Cato's 18 and Katniss is 16, a girl 2 years younger than him, shorter than him, smaller than him, less trained, less skilled than him, beat his score. This should have been the Cato show. Cato should have won. In his mind, this game should have been all about him. And it's the worst kind of toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
A girl stole that title from him, and a girl showed him up.
How dare
She'd have been an easy kill.
Mm-hmm.
He should have been able to leave her to it. He should have been able just to let someone else get her and focus on the other big guys like Thresh early on. Because he's the real competition, right? Thresh is taller, leaner, bigger. He's got more muscle, less body fat. He's fully honed from the work that he does. And while they're well fed, while they have energy, while they're still fresh in the arena, why not kill off your biggest competition? And that's the bigger guys. That is Thresh. That is other people who are likely to dominate the field. Instead, you've gone after a little girl who had no bow and arrows. You've screwed your own chances here.
Yeah.
By going after the girl and not thinking logically.
I think I'm not really sure what their game plan was, that to be honest, but I would like to think about the parents who are probably so proud of Cato for going off to the games, which I have to imagine they were because they were from a career district, and then having to watch him get eaten to death by mutts over hours and hours and suffering. It makes me wonder how those parents feel in that moment. Or do you think they would be sad? Do you think they'd still be proud? Or has the capital completely stripped the career district parents from having those kind of feelings for their children? Are their children now just property of the capital? How could they even manage that?
I kind of think of it as cult parents, I suppose.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too.
Because this mindset is very brainwashed cult-like. And I guess your loyalty has to be to the capital. And are the kids who lose a disgrace in did they deserve it because they couldn't overpower everyone? Because these parents, presumably, depending on how these career districts work, would, at least some of them, if not all of them, would have been trained the same way, and they missed their chance to go into the arena, presumably, unless some of these kids are victors, some of these parents are victors. Most of these parents would have not gone in, and this would be even not cult parents, pageant parents. This is now your kid's chance to win the beauty crown that you didn't receive, or whatever it is. That's kind of how I am thinking of it. I would imagine the parents are either ashamed that their kids didn't win, or have to act that way because that's what Capital wants them to do, or they think their kids are a disgrace because they didn't win. I don't think any of them could openly mourn in the same way that other districts could.
I just think is how, if they've been doing this for years and years and years, these people are having babies and then they're getting trained and then they're going off to fight as careers because they're made out to be this successful privilege and great thing to do for the districts, and they're dying. How much is that cycle going on, and how like detached would you become from your child? Are these parents just keeping having children because they know they could send them off to the game?
Well, they're in a district already that having more children isn't going to harm them. They have enough food to go around. So I guess they've got the best of the privilege in terms of you can have more kids. You're not going to worry about feeding them. But at the same time, the kids you're having, presumably all being trained to go into the arena and fighting to go in. These guys want the glory. These guys want to go and be the best and come out and have all the celebrity that comes along with having been in the games. I guess the more kids you pop out, the more chance you have that your family will be a victor.
Yeah.
Which is a sad state of affairs. But then this kind of also feeds into, are these parents more predisposed automatically? Because if we have this history of training for years and years and brainwashing these people into believing that winning is the best thing they can do, and they want to put on a show and they want to like actually go in and be sadistic as out in these games. I guess you've kind of got the nature versus nurture debate going on as well, because if you've got parents who are predisposed to being narcissistic and sadist and all this kind of stuff, then having kids, whether genetically they are passing down a predisposition to certain mental health issues like the lovely cannibal dude that I'm going to mention a bit more about in a minute. But then also at home, they're being nurtured in the same way. If these parents are more predisposed to this, I don't think there's some therapy camp for any of these non-tributes who come out of it. I think they're all predisposed then to think like this in life and then pass that down to their kids. And then the Capitol just has an easier time of getting these kids on board with their ideas. But then obviously there are some who take it too far, like the cannibal dude. Like the game makers, Katniss points out, had to kill him off. They had to send in some sort of mutt to kill him because they could not have their victor be a cannibal, which once again like begs the question of how are these kids trained? What kind of mental scars are inflicted on them to get to that point? This is a child who decided that he would like to put on a show by eating human flesh.
No.
Delightful. She says sarcastically.
Sick. Makes me feel Okay, so the careers have obviously developed a reputation. We have spoken about this before, but I think it's especially important now. Like, they have a game plan, which everyone is aware of. Katniss is aware from the gong that the careers will stockpile everything at the Cornucopia and stop everyone else from getting their hands on it. Essentially try and starve everyone else out. And it's clearly a game plan they've used for generations. But it also makes Katniss realise that they have had these game plans and that they can kill, but they have absolutely zero survival skills. So that's how Katniss obviously realises if her and Rue destroy the food supplies, etc., that they won't be able to hunt for food necessarily themselves or forage, because they are completely untrained in that area. Like the killing is what brings them the glory, not the survival aspects. And that does slowly over time become their downfall for the remaining careers. The careers are also not used to starving. They have the food, they have the supplies in their districts. They haven't got used to starving and hunting like, say, Katniss from District 12. Also, everyone also knows they will also congregate together once the gong goes off, with each one being aware they'll probably have to switch on each other, like we mentioned, and kill each other in the end. So where does the line of ambition cross into exploitation and just being morally bad? How much of the blame goes to the careers and how much goes to the system that raised them to be this way?
You've got to be ambitious in these games. You've got to be ambitious enough to win.
Uh-huh.
But I think it's when you start siding with the Capitol. I think Peter says it best, where he doesn't want the games to take away his humanity.
Yeah.
He doesn't want the need for survival to turn him into someone he is not. Well, the careers have always been these people, but they're not out here for their own survival. They're out here to, like Clove, torture and kill and taunt and maim and draw it out and really, really play into the Capitol's pocket. But ultimately, the Capitol is their meal ticket. So
yeah,
I think the dividing line is when they enjoy it. I think there's a very big difference between playing the hand you've been dealt and actively liking to inflict this amount of pain on other human beings.
Which we've seen with Chloe from District 2, where I feel like that she definitely crosses the line there. But I feel like Cato does start to have some sort of that clarity at the end. And obviously Glimmer doesn't really survive long enough for us to really know what goes on in her head. But because I also think seeing these careers in the games, I do wonder, again, we've theorized what these training academies are like, but do you think they just train to kill, or do you think they have normal lessons as well, like maths, English, all this kind of thing? Like, do you think they have normal classes?
I think they'd probably learn to read. I feel like that seems to be like an essential life skill. But I do kind of see it as much killing as possible. I mean, I guess you do have to be beneficial to the Capitol in another way, don't you? Really, if you win and be a victor, you need to have some semblance of persuasive skills and a lot of, not necessarily life experience, but life skills in terms of what the Capitol would view a life skill. So putting up, shutting up being the key one. Buying into the bullshit, but also spinning the bullshit yourself. I don't think maths or anything similar close to that is anywhere near important. But in the same way, like a lot of schools would teach home ec. And we'd call it DT and stuff like that, and cooking skills, life skills. They clearly can't do any of that, but then at home they have the life, right? Is that where these training academies fail these kids? Because obviously we've proven that they can't live off the land. They haven't been taught survival skills. They have been taught killing skills. They don't know how to survive in the arena without what the Capitol provides for them to be supplies to use. I doubt any of them, I doubt any of them has ever done any sort of camping that didn't include being provided with all the equipment.
Yeah,
like,
I
no
highly
one's had
doubt
to
they
try and
were, like put into a forest and said, like, survive for yourself. So I know we brought up so far, like, how young do the tributes start training for the career districts? And I think the ethics of this are obviously just so, like, messed up. Like, there's not really any debate for that. Like, it is just ethically messed up. But something I do want to bring as we kind of get closer to our conclusion on this question, do they really understand the significance of what they're training for and training to do if they're starting at such, say, like primary school age? Are they essentially being groomed from birth by the Capitol?
I guess, you know how a lot of things school-wise work, where you get taught the same subjects over and over and over again, but they go into different amounts of detail on the same topic as you level up. So rather than just being taught about all the scientific names for muscles in the body and how plants photosynthesize. Like from your first class, you get led up to that in terms of like label the parts of the plant. What does this do? What does that do? And then you start looking into like the chemistry of it and all the hormones and chemicals and scientific formulas that come along with it. That's kind of how I view it. I kind of think they just get told like the basic. This is what you do. This is why. And then as they get older, they get given more of the propaganda, more in-depth responses. And so in the same way that we are led to the amount of scientific knowledge that you have when you leave high school, because you've been building up that in biology classes from the age of about 5, I think that's how they are when they're leaving these like training academies. I think it's building and building and building on top of each other, because then if you start out with what you've known since you were 5 at base level and then twist and twist and twist, it's a lot harder to unravel.
It's kind of, it's that thing, right, where it's like, well, if you put a frog in a boiling pot of water, they'll jump right back out, yeah? But if you put a frog in lukewarm water and you slowly boil it up, they'll kind of boil to death and they won't jump out. I feel like that is similar into this respect, that they were probably put in a lukewarm killing situation, and then very, very slowly it was all kicked up a notch to the point where, where it was like, oh, it's too late to jump out now, kind of thing. So I do think, but even after all that, even after being trained, even after being like adored, even after seeing it as a really good thing for their districts and as like the glory and the power and all this sort of stuff, what really gets me is at the end with these mutts, their eyes and their personality of even the career tributes are used in these mutts. The capital really don't care. Like, yes, they put on a good show, but at the end of the day for them, the careers are still on the same level as the other dead tribute district kids. They're still district, that they still have that stigma about being from the district. They don't really care. Like, they make the careers and the career districts feel like they are special to them to get good TV and to get them under control. But realistically, they could not care.
But I guess now we get onto the benefit that the capital gets by having all these careers win. They know that they have got mentors who won't make waves, who
don't make waves. Yeah.
Who
bad
won't
advice.
Very, very bad advice. But you have literally like engineered the perfect victor, because you want these victors to bring out at parties and tout around and show off to sponsors to try and get even more money back into the games. You want to bring them out for expert analysis while the games are on, talking about when they were in there and how that compares to what the current tributes are doing. And you really want to then exploit them for the rest of their lives for sound bites, basically.
For sound bites.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And to make money off them and their lives. And you have already engineered people who are going to want to relish in the good old days where they were in the arena. You have made people who are happy to relive the experiences that a lot of people would deem to be traumatic. But they are invested in this arena. And when it comes to rebellion, the career districts are going to be last, because they already have all of the benefits. They aren't going into these capital parties the same way that Katniss and Peter walk in and being disgusted by the opulence and the waste and the amount of food that is on display when people are starving. In the districts, these careers are like, well, hey, it's like home. And look, here, all these people want to hear about my exploits. Or they've bred that arrogance in to enjoy it. And the more people who are like that, who are in charge of these tributes, the better, because the less risk they run of the games being tampered with in the same way that Haymitch and Katniss and Peter do.
Yeah. So I guess coming to the end question here, are they an asshole for buying into this kind of career scheme that they've been born into? The ultimate question is, like, if you're brainwashed into being an evil killing machine, what actually is the level of responsibility of your actions, and therefore how much of an arsehole are Cato, Clove, Glimmer, etc. Really.
I still want to say, like, if we're going off our new little sliding scale, quite up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still want to say, like, 75% asshole.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've got a bit of benefit of the doubt because you didn't choose to be born into that district. You didn't choose to be brainwashed in this way. But I still think there's something about relishing in death
And
of
killing
other people,
someone.
your
Yeah.
lack of value of human life. I mean, it's exactly what the capital has itself. You are very, very capital for having been in that position, but you are also forced to confront like people on the ground before you, screaming, writhing in agony. We're not talking about capital residents here who see it behind a screen and can somehow kid themselves that this is reality, but it's not reality. It's not happening to them. They are removed from it. It's just something on TV. It can't hurt us. These guys are drinking the Kool-Aid in a whole different way.
Yeah. I think we do have to give them a bit of the benefit of a doubt and a little bit of leeway because they were probably trained from primary school age. They've been indoctrinated into this. But these are people who are happy and excited to kill other people with their own hands. And I think when you get to that point, you have to be a bit of an arsehole, especially Clove. There was something deeply wrong with Clove.
With Clove.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just the collecting of knives to cut someone up like an art project. That is
just deeply disturbed. Deeply
Do we
disturbed.
think like how the game makers sent Mutz after Cannibal Boy, that if Clove got down to one of the final few, would she have been on the extreme side? Would she have been killed off by the arena? Or do you think she's not too dark for the capital yet?
I don't think she would have been killed off by the arena. So we've had other victors who have done some pretty messed up things. I think literally they had to kill that cannibal guy because that, like, apparently that's where they draw the line.
That's the one line they won't cross. Yeah.
Apparently that's the one line they won't cross. Okay, so after that very long episode, Rachel, I have a question for you.
Okay.
So we've established that careers are District 1, 2, and 4. But which district would you least like to come from and why?
Least.
It's
a hard one. It's a really, really hard one. Because
it's a hard one.
Because do I want to be as screwed up as if I'd gone through districts 1, 2, or 4 careers? No, but at the same time, you would have had a better quality of life, like food-wise and monetarily, I guess. Do you want to suffer and be whipped by peacekeepers and everything like that? Do you want to struggle every single day in District 12? Though arguably, out of all this, 12 doesn't seem all that bad.
Remember the question.
I think I'd
the question
least
is
be 2.
Least would be 2.
Least 2. Least would be 2. Because you've then got to go into like if you don't get picked, that is peacekeepers and military, and then you become part of the problem everywhere else as well. That's why I'm going 2.
I think for me, it's either 2, which I did think of, or 11. Mainly because I eat a lot of food and I would probably end up getting executed somehow because I would eat
stealing
something
things.
I shouldn't. Yeah,
stealing from the farming.
I would eat something I shouldn't, essentially. Yeah.
You're like, I'm just going to steal this apple. No, wait, no, you're not.
No, I'm not. So thanks so much for making it to the end of episode 6, the career episode. I'm really intrigued to actually see what people's opinions are on, how they think the career training is put together, whether we think the careers actually enjoy what they're doing and going to kill, and what the families think too.
Yeah, and I guess as well, to what extent do we view careers as victims as well in the situation they've been dealt, or are they more perpetrators because they are in the capital's back pocket? Because obviously at some point someone in the districts had to agree to this plan.
Yeah, so
to start this whole thing.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what people's opinions are, and thanks so much for making it to the end of another episode with us. I know we're very chaotic, I know we go on a lot of tangents, and I know these are I fidget
a lot.
I fidget a lot. Got fireworks
I
this
never sit
episode.
still.
Everything's happening this episode. But Rachel, what is our next episode?
Our next episode, if I remember rightly, I don't remember rightly.
I
I
don't
haven't
remember
written it yet. That's why I don't remember. Let's find out. I have a big long list here. I think, so our next episode. So you think this one was a doozy, do you?
Oh, no.
Are you ready? Our next episode, President Snow. Am I the asshole for keeping the peace through fear?
I hate him already, so I just feel like I haven't even started the episode and I'm already angry, though.
I feel like
It's gonna be
I've let you
interesting.
down with what the next episode is already. I'm so sorry. We haven't
No,
even written the
like,
script for it yet.
I know, it's okay. We gotta get into it. And I know when we do the episodes for songbirds, I'm gonna have a lot to say. So
But it's going to have to suck it up and like wade through the muddy decisions that all these people have made.
okay.
Wish us luck with that one, guys.
Well, yeah, I really hope you join us next time as we get into President Snow and how he has some very inappropriate relationships with some teenagers and his opinion on how he can control people, which is a complete really messed up. But yeah, I hope you join us next time, and thanks so much for being here again.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Thanks for listening to our podcast, and don't forget to let us know your thoughts on all of our potential assholes.
No matter what platform you're listening to us on, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, upvote, and all that stuff.
If you like what we do and want to find out more, all of our platforms are listed in the description or show notes. We're a two-person team, so any support or feedback is always greatly received.
Tune in next time to Once Upon a Red Flag. Now, I've never really fully considered the crime stats of a district.
No.
Because the capital's opinion of what constitutes a crime is genuinely screwed up.
Yep.
But this process of training these kids into becoming vicious, unrelenting killers definitely screws with their moral compass, which begs the question, do serial killers exist in this world? And is that what careers become?